Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and it's Mike, the sad fan today. We're throwing the final shovel of dirt on the New York Knicks really quickly here.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And it's a sad situation with the Knicks, but one of those, what are you going to do? The Knicks overachieved in a lot of respects, but at the end of the day, and I say this whenever there's an argument about coaching or officials or GMs or any of this nonsense, players got to play. And if you don't have the talent, everything else really doesn't matter. Knicks just ran out of players. That's pure and simple. That's my assessment of this series. I know I don't care about home court. I don't care about bad calls or good calls. At the end of the day, when your top six guys in your rotation are either out, get hurt, or not at 100%, I don't care who you're playing in the playoffs, you're going to lose. And the fact that this team even limped its way to 7 games makes me pretty happy, to be a fan of this team. That didn't make yesterday any easier. Leaving the Garden was, not a happy experience, but so be it. I know we're going to talk. Maybe we might have a special bonus episode later in the week where we bring in some special guests who've been agonizing with me throughout the last couple of months. So we'll talk more about that on the socials after this. But yeah, I don't want to belabor this too much. It's not a question of being mad that we were outplayed, or the fact is we just ran out of players.
Well, I mean, this is sort of the thing that stinks about basketball versus football, or at least NBA versus the NFL. I'll say it that way, because and we've had this conversation before, probably on the show, but definitely we've had this conversation where with basketball and hockey, and you have your best of series, most of the time the better team wins. Like, it evens out flukes a lot of the time. And the Knicks were kind of playing with house money for a very long time, and over the course of a best of 7 3 times, it was just unsustainable. But they were hot, whereas if this were the single elimination NCAA tournament, they had a legit shot to win the way they were playing.
No, I would say hockey is more random. The basketball is definitely the best example of over 7 games, the best team most likely wins. Hockey is kind of random. Baseball is extremely random, but
I don't think hockey's random so much as the end of season record does not necessarily reflect who is the best right now. I think it's just so momentum based in hockey.
Yeah. I mean, I as far as like just watching a team over 7 teams, like you don't feel like a team that's playing better usually wins in hockey, but that may necessarily be the best team. I think there's more influence, like there's more recency things, like, a hot goalie, or somebody's out or something. So
yeah, no, or somebody came back.
But basketball usually is, you don't have that much variance in basketball, like hockey.
Also, hockey, that trade deadline is super late.
Yeah,
you can just add pieces right at the end, which is kind of weird. Well, the Lightning did it, worked.
Well, we did things like, you can manipulate the salary cap for guys that are hurt, and then all of a sudden they're ready to go when the season started. I mean, the Lightning have done that. Vegas did it this year. So there's ways around all that stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of melancholy. Like, it was gearing to be a really special run, but at the end of the day, when you have no Randall, you have no OG, you have no Bogdanovich, you have no Brunson in the second half of the game, you have you're relying on the Alex Burks of the world. You're relying on guys Precious Achiuwa, guys who shouldn't be anywhere near. They should be sitting up with me in the seats in the playoffs, but you have to rely on them for heavy minutes. And when you're playing other playoff teams, sooner or later it's going to get you, and it got us.
Well, with that said, I'm sorry that there is at least some quit in New York. But not at Just Giants. We don't quit. So off-season, we're going to go over a couple of off-season storylines that we have not yet gone over. None of them are super duper new, but some of them are new. So first things,
our takes on things more than anything that we may not have covered so far.
Right, and let's start with the first thing here. John Mara famously said that he would never let the Giants be on Hard Knocks. Is he a liar? The answer is no, because this version of Hard Knocks that the New York Giants are going to be on this year is going to be a first time ever style of Hard Knocks. This will not include any training camp. This is covering the New York Giants offseason from January through June. It's premiering, I think, in July, which means everything will be fully recorded. It will not be, well, honestly, what I think is the most impressive part about Hard Knocks, and I kind of want to just talk about Hard Knocks in general, but we'll get there in a second. The most impressive thing to me about Hard Knocks is how quickly they turn around such a highly produced and quality episode in like 4 days. But this isn't that.
That's been an NFL Films thing forever. I
No,
mean,
that's true too. Yeah.
they cover all these games on Sunday, and then even having back the old NFL Films, like films that they'd have come out, or when they incorporate into inside the NFL or whatever that show was on Showtime, they'd have things ready by Thursday, like well-produced segments of a game. So that's their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like this format better, honestly, because
Interesting. Well, wait.
Because,
before you tell me about the format,
yeah.
How do you feel about the Giants being on it? Do you feel positive, negative, or neutral?
I would say, again, everything I look through the lens of the selfish me. So for me, positive, because I don't know if I'm going to watch a show about a team I just don't care about.
Okay.
There's enough going on where I don't need to make sure it's appointment TV that I watch something going on about the LA Chargers. But however, this is a team that obviously I'm interested in, and this kind of goes into my reasoning why I like this format is the show had become so close, so cliched, and so like formulaic of like players playing up to the cameras. And if you know me, you know my things. I don't care what players say in press conferences. I don't care what coaches say. I just want to, I want to see the games. I want to see smart, intelligent analysis of what I saw. I don't need to see something that's been packaged as PR. So normally I don't care what these guys say or do. And in Hard Knocks, just became how these guys can build their brand and become characters, and doesn't really tell me anything about the team coming up or anything. I like this because we're kind of taking the players out of the mix, and we are filming people doing their jobs. And I find that more interesting. Again, I don't think we're going to glean much out of it from an informative standpoint, but for entertaining, I'm going to find it pretty entertaining.
Man, you're not in sales. This is filming people doing their jobs, and that's entertaining to me. Man, you really didn't sell it, but I think you're right.
No,
watching people do their jobs does not sound compelling, but this to me actually is compelling. So I think that this is the right time and the right thing. The fact that it's the Giants, I think, is kind of cool. I don't really care. I think that any time now in the internet age, since I actually do predate that, I do remember life before it. But now in the internet age, anytime anything exists, it exists forever. And anything that makes somebody look stupid or just a spur of the moment 5-second thing where you didn't look your best lives on in infamy, and now the Giants are part of that, and that sucks, right? Just like anything else. So like I think little things like that will always kind of nag me that it's the Giants in the center spotlight. But that being said, for one, it's high time. Like Hard Knocks has been doing the same show for like 8 years, hoping to catch the next Rex Ryan, making the show better than the script. The script is written. You know what I mean? Like for what happens in the training camp, that part's up for whatever, but the NFL training camp now is literally scripted on how much they can do, what they can do. And so coaches have to cram their entire offseason program into these scripted practices anyway. So there's not going to be a whole lot of variation there. So no matter what, Hard Knocks was literally putting out the same show every year, and it wasn't even really their fault. But at one time, Hard Knocks was the coolest inside look at an NFL training camp back when I was a kid. Then I think they started running into a problem where NFL teams are NFL teams 365 days out of the year, and it's a business 365 days of the year. So then you get things like J.J. Watt understanding the cadence that Miami is using just by watching Hard Knocks, and that's a disadvantage. And so now they have to show less and less to you, the viewer, because it's out there, and the show just got watered down through the sands of time. And I think
Well,
that
it's
this is a fresh look at something that's not detrimental, or at least we haven't figured out the detriment of what other teams seeing your offseason process is. I just think it's interesting. It's finally a fresh look that's now going to be an inside look, I think.
I think it would. I'm surprised this version of it has not been relegated to like NFL Network or somewhere where it's more niche watching, because I think the average fan who watches Hard Knocks and is not like a serious NFL fan, I think is going to be bored to tears with this. I honestly do,
Could
because
be.
these shows have become so personality driven, whether it's the any combination of the brash owner, the brash head coach, the the
Fat
big mouth,
offensive line coach. Yeah.
yeah, the big mouth wide receiver, the controversy just around the thing. That's what the show has become. And most things in sports, when you get critical mass and really big ratings for stuff, are not the performance on the field. It's all that extra stuff around. It's come see Odell Beckham. And Odell Beckham, just for being a personality, drew more eyeballs. I mean, maybe they'll show Taylor Swift 9 times in a box. That increases ratings, and they play to that. This is the anti, talk about not being in sales. This is the anti-sales for the league, where you're going to really see behind the nuts and bolts of how you build a team with guys that have as much, personality as, you know, this case. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just really kind of. So I'm curious, if this is going to be a one-time thing, because no one's going to care and people can be bored to tears. Um, you're not going to have Kayvon Thibodeau kind of being a personality in the locker room,
Well,
or
see, that's where I think you might be wrong. Yes, during the time frame in which they are filming, you're correct. There won't be a whole lot of players in the building, but nevertheless, that doesn't preclude them from shoehorning previously filmed stuff into the episode. Like you could have a whole Kayvon Thibodeau story. Like theoretically, let's say Kayvon is sort of heading towards a contract year, right? And because Kayvon's got some sort of personality, now we're using B-roll and mic'd up footage from the NFL from last season and the season before, and some other B-roll stuff that they have of him around the building just from the Giants social media team. And that's all factoring into their offseason decision on whether or not to pay him, and the couple times he's got to come in for negotiations. So I still think that there will be a way for them to shoehorn personality. I guarantee you will see Daniel Jones both in B-roll footage and
yeah.
him in the building. I also think that the feel good, like how does this affect the family 53rd guy on the roster thing that they do every year, I think you're just going to get Brian Dable and Joe Shane's family. How the offseason never stop. I think that's what's going to happen. I have the same
that sounds
groan-worthy
that's
reaction you do.
that sounds very boring to me.
I agree. I don't care.
Because the whole thing about the family was like, it's the cliche, and they've done it for almost 25 years now. It's the rookie. How
Right.
is the rookie adjusting in his new family? How is the family adjusting to moving to a new city if it's a free agent? Or how is the new family dealing with, am I going to make the team or not? This is guys that are just like, they're fat and happy, and they're just doing their gigs. So they're going to come home at night and be like, yeah, what's up?
Well, I mean,
I don't
like
know.
Brian Dable, I think is quick-witted. He's funny. He's very smart. I think that he could drive something there, some interest. Joe Shane might as well be a mannequin. Not that he's not smart, but he's probably not very interesting to be around.
And I would guess, again, if you told me this is, Crank, you are the showrunner for this show, what would your show be? My show in an off-season situation would probably be 80-20, talking about Joe Shane in the front office and the decisions involved in free agency and the draft, and it is really on the coaches.
Same.
And I that's what I would do. Now, if they're going to make it like a 50-50 mix or more from the Dable point of view, I think you're reaching for content. And if you're reaching for content, you really don't have a show. It becomes the Ryan Dable show.
So I really wonder how much of because this is starting from January, allegedly. How much of the Wink Martindale departure is involved in this?
I hope a lot.
Because that 24 clipboard thing, play sheet, that all happened in January. So, I mean, I'm guarantee you some form of the B-roll and Shane Bowen coming in and the other, not head coach, sorry, defensive coordinator interviews that they tried to do and did do, all that's going to be part of it, right?
It's a pretty big elephant in the room if they don't talk about it.
I think it's awesome. I'm a little annoyed that it's the Giants because this is sort of embarrassing. The Wink Martindale situation is embarrassing, no matter whose fault it is. It's a blemish. Yeah, of course. I think anytime, because I have a high suspicion that the same sort of nonsense was kind of going on with Harbaugh in Baltimore, but they were able to keep it under wraps. And he was, they cut ties with each other. They moved on, and it didn't become a blemish for Baltimore. They just moved on from a defensive coordinator, and it was sort of like people were kind of like, I can't believe they fired him. Like, don't they know that his defense sucked because all the guys were injured? Blah 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 blah. Like, there were excuses made, but there was some smoke there. It was kind of confusing. In retrospect, I think it's a lot less confusing, but there's no blemish on Harbaugh for not being able to control the situation or whatever. My honest perspective from both, Wink Martindale is a guy I respect and like, and same thing with Brian Daboll. And my perspective on that whole situation was incredibly childish and disappointing. So I think it's embarrassing.
I think you're talking about an industry where you are dealing with incredible egos and incredible competitive streaks that we will never face in our normal lives. And I think that trying to corral all of those different egos is a very, very, very difficult situation to do because, if you're a defensive coordinator of a team, you are one of 32 in the world in that position, and you think you're the shit, and you think you are right, and just think of the mentality of defense anyway is just being an animal, just being like, we're going to get that quarterback, we are going to stop them, it's all on attitude and emotion as much as it is on strength and talent. So I don't think it's a blemish. I just think it's just kind of the way it is, that I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often.
I guess so.
Egos. And again,
I think it probably happens.
Remember, he didn't come, that's not from like when this new regime came in, it was Shane and Daboll kind of together, and they kind of got their guys. This is a guy they brought from the outside. So, I know in my my real life business, we have to hire people all the time, and they don't always mesh.
Right.
I mean, we have an interview with them, we read their resume, looks good. Have a 30-minute Teams call now because we're in a post-COVID world. Seems like a good guy. Seems like he's saying all the right things. Seems all right. I don't know, and a good percentage. I mean, if you're really good at your job, your turnover's low. If you are not a very good judge of character, or you can't read somebody well, it's going to be higher. But it doesn't mean that even if you're really good at your job, that everybody's perfect. I mean, sometimes it's not going to work out. So I don't think it's a blemish. I just think it's one of those. It's kind of the cost of doing business. It'll be a forgotten thing, and by week 4, there'll be something else we'll be bitching about. And
frankly, I keep forgetting it happened.
I'm not gonna lie. I've so moved on for it, and so if they revisit it, if any of the truth kind of comes out or something, like if you watch a documentary about that long Beatles one, like you got a different perception of how things were making that album than you did before it. So maybe you get a different perspective because again, this all depends also on editing. I mean, how much do the Giants have their thumbprint on what actually is
I was going to say, I can't imagine that there would be a change in the storyline that makes the Giants look worse.
But even so, they're all kind of professionals, and they're not gonna put a hit job on a guy after the fact. They kind of dodged a bullet, I think, with this whole situation, that it's kind of over. So I think they're going to treat it. They're going to try to polish it a little bit to make us look a little better than maybe we did, but I don't think it's going to be a hit job on Wink. I think it'll just be kind of they're either going to gloss over it, like, that Patriots thing, like, oh yeah, they won the second Super Bowl and they moved on to the third one, or, it might be more juicier than we think. But
so you don't mind that it's the Giants, or are you excited that it's the Giants? This first training camp version, non-training camp version.
I have an interest that it's the Giants that I wouldn't have before. I probably wouldn't have watched it before. Now I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch it for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not excited about it. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm excited enough that I think we will discuss it in each episode, on the show is something as a talking point to kind of evaluate. But excitement, excited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
I get that.
interested. Yeah. I'm not gonna have a watch party. I'm not gonna, invite the gang over to come over and make popcorn. I'm not gonna. But sure, it's my
Man,
team.
it's Sunday
I'm
nights on HBO. You're not making popcorn?
Well, if The Wire was still on, or
There you
Sopranos
go.
maybe, or Curb or something. But I don't know about this. But watch for sure.
Other thing, the Giants unveiled their Century Red uniforms, which they will be wearing 2 times or perhaps more, but I think probably only 2 times this year. It will be commemorating their 100th year, and for that they stylized these uniforms after their 1925 uniforms. So you have red, blue striped socks, you have tan pants, which actually look like they're kind of gold to me.
I thought they were gold at first. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the red and blue striped jersey, which kind of looks a little bit like a rugby jersey. And you have this dark blue helmet with like a Michigan Wolverines style, like stripe and center stripe action that's made of red on top. So these uniforms were meant to commemorate their 100th year. I don't care what anyone thinks. I love these uniforms. I think that this is the perfect thing you do when you're trying to commemorate 100 years or whatever milestone. If you're commemorating a milestone for your franchise, the way to do it is not to unveil a new look heading into the new whatever millennium or century or whatever you're trying to do. You're not doing that. You are embracing how far you've come. And to me, the best way to do that is kind of take a look back. It's the same thing,
it's go to commemorating.
You go to the fucking gym to lose weight, right? You take a before picture, you take an after picture, right? And you want to see how far you've come. And 100 years, for context, this is an entire nation that's just a little over 250 years old. You know what I mean? So it's a big deal. I think that these uniforms, honestly, are cool anyway. I actually think that these uniforms are sick as hell.
It's interesting when I woke up that morning and you texted me and you said apparently we're getting new uniforms. After all, I was like, what? And I went on to Twitter and I saw the first thing was something about red. And my first thought were those Jeremy Shockey era red. I'm like, oh my God, don't tell me they brought that back, which I hated.
That is routinely brought up by fans as something cool that I just never thought was cool. There's nothing cool about a plain red jersey. I'm sorry.
Our nickname is Big Blue, not red. I mean, I understand people don't like the away uniforms, so they have it's white with red, but no, they're ugly and they're awful and they represented Jeremy Shockey and fuck that, didn't like him. So and then like the first like millisecond I saw it, I was like, what? And then the second millisecond I was like, Montreal Canadiens. And then from the third millisecond on, I'm like, these are fantastic.
Oh, okay, and you like them too. All right.
I love them. I think they're great.
We have not talked about this like at all.
We have not. If like for the first half a second, I was like, oh wait, no, they are cool. Then I saw the pants, and I'm like, people are complaining about the pants, and again, this is exactly your point. When you're commemorating something, you're looking back on what it was, and you are honoring them by recreating it. It's not because it's not the current fashion trend of the moment. It's not trying to be grammable. It's none of that bullshit. It's to celebrate that's what they were. I mean, I will say that the uniform designers of the 20s and 30s were pretty outstanding. I love all those old uniforms. I love the old Packer ones. I love the old Steeler ones. I love the Giant ones. I mean, they're all great. Well, must have been a fun time to be alive back then.
The Steelers ones, I can at least sympathize with people who are like, that is terrible. They look like bumblebees. It's too many stripes. I like the effort, but I can understand not liking that one. I think the old Broncos ones, I think they're like brown and maybe orange or
yeah, but we're talking about things from like the 20s and 30s. I mean, that Dolphins,
Broncos are
in the 60s. Yeah. In the 60s, yeah. So I'm talking about like when they literally were like sewing patches onto it just to because they, you know, they weren't made to stand out on TV. They were made to just basically when you're at the game, just tell who's who.
Right. I think that they're cool. I think that they're different. Obviously they're different. I know everyone wanted something new and flashy. It's not going to happen with this organization. And first of all, it's
especially
not
not for commemorating 100 years.
Exactly. This isn't the moment. And then B. John Mara is not that guy. He never was the guy who was going to be like the black sheep of the family that took over the family business. He's not. He's not the black sheep. He has very much always done things in the very traditional Giant sense. And for the record, you can say that that's lame for his decisions to keeping things in house and making it a family thing and hiring Dave Gettleman. These are all like family business decisions that he made that were bad decisions. This is a fucking uniform. This is fine. This is fine.
This is a combination of we have nothing to talk about on May 20th and we're not good.
I would buy this uniform. I would buy this. First of all, let me say this. To commemorate 100 years, even if they weren't going to do anything different with their uniforms, let's say that they were going to ignore it and they were going to be like, on week 8, we're going to have a halftime ceremony and that's all we're doing for the 100th year. That's fine. I still would have bought a jersey this year just because I know it's their 100th year. So I was going to do it no matter what. I also knew the Giants were not going to ignore it. So
I have 2 questions for you. One question I prepped you for, one question I didn't prep you for. Because I myself, I want to get that uniform also. I mean, I jumped on the Rays City Connect uniform. I jumped on the Knicks when they had their alternative, their city jerseys and stuff. So unless it's completely ugly, I will get it. So my first question to you is one I didn't ask you before.
Okay.
Giants have been around for to be 100 years.
Okay.
You're picking one number and one name to represent that 100 years for you. And that could have a last name on the back or not, or just a number to reflect that person. Who's your number?
So you mean in Giants' pantheon of uniforms or any number name combination? Like, can I get like number 1 dad? Is that what you're saying?
No. You have to pick one player to you that you would want to honor by saying that's my guy from the history of the Giants that they said you can buy a jersey, you get a free number put on it. You can put the last name if you want it on it too, or just go old school and just have the number. Who's the guy that to you represents the Giants over the past 100 years?
Emlyn Tunnell. Emlyn Tunnell is my favorite historic Giant. He existed far before my lifetime, but he is a certified Giant, an absolute badass. So for people who don't know, and I'm not surprised, he's from the 40s. Emlyn Tunnell was the first black player on the Giants, I believe. I'm almost positive he's the first black player in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He played free safety for the Giants. I believe he still holds their interception career record. He was essentially Ed Reed before Ed Reed. He revolutionized the safety position. He's a certified badass. He broke his neck in playing football in college and still tried to join the Army to fight in World War II. They wouldn't let him, so he joined the Coast Guard instead. So he's an absolute man's man. He revolutionized the position. First black player in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's outstanding. And I believe he retained a coaching position in some regard with the Giants for decades after he retired. Emlyn Tunnell, to me, is he encompasses all the things that make a New York Giant a New York Giant.
It's a very interesting answer. That's a deeper answer than I was even considering. I was being kind of shallow. Just who's your favorite player in the last 100 years?
Yeah.
So,
honestly, he's a Ring of Honor guy, and I'm sure he's the fantastic. One Ring of Honor guy that everyone looks up as like, nah, never heard of him. But they should have, because honestly, he to me is the Giant. Although I'm sure a lot of people would say Frank Gifford, right?
I'm going to go just who my favorite Giant of all time was.
Phil Simms.
And I'm going to also preface that from 1979 until the present day of the time I actually watched, unlike some Yankee fans who love to talk about their 27 rings when they weren't alive for 26 of them, I'm actually going to stick to the period when I actually was a living, breathing Giant fan who remembers things actually happening. My favorite Giant of all time was and always will be Phil Simms. I thought Phil Simms was a guy that is not the flashiest, not the best stats, was never, one of the three best quarterbacks in the league. He may have not have ever even been the best quarterback in his division when he played, but he was a gamer. He was a guy, if it was 4th and 11, you needed a first down, he got you the first down. He was fantastic, obviously, in that Super Bowl, and people forget and remember Jeff Hostetler winning that Super Bowl, the one in Super Bowl 25. But the team was also undefeated in 11-0 before he broke his hand, Phil Simms. So
Right.
great defense and everything. But there is no Super Bowl run without Phil Simms. That they're not making that run. As good as that defense was, and the role players, not with Jeff Hostetler. So I would, if I was going to say who would that guy be, it would be Phil Simms for me. The question I did ask you prior is, if we look at the current roster, because we all need jerseys to wear to go to games, and right now we have our collection of jerseys of recent and not so recent Giants that we rotate in for games. But New Jersey coming up here, no pun intended. We have to get a jersey number for it. And, if you want to have someone from this year's team, who's your jersey?
Because Tommy DeVito. Just kidding.
Holy Jesus.
I was kidding. So I've actually thought about this, because the moment I saw them, and I mean, they unveiled them all at work. So like 12 people walked up to my desk and were like, "Oh, look at what do you think?" So I've had this conversation like 100 times already, but I've thought about this because I do want to buy them, and I don't know if they're going to release these jerseys in any legacy numbers. Like, I thought it was interesting. Neither one of us said Lawrence Taylor. Neither one of us said Eli Manning. You know what I mean? Like, these are numbers that they could roll out with this jersey. I'm not sure what their plan is, but if we have to pick from the current roster, that was my concern. Is like, who would I even pick if they only release the current roster? And it's not that much of a concern at all, because
it's dicey. It's a hard decision.
But let me answer this very, very simply. Like I said, I hearkened back to my original thought process, was that no matter what they unveiled, or if they unveiled nothing new, I was going to get a jersey this year to commemorate the 100th. Why not go with this year's first round pick? It's all the same. Their 100th year, they selected Malik Neighbors.
That's actually not a bad pick, because normally I'm like, if we're going to shell out, all the shekels you need to buy a jersey, and they're not cheap, you better get someone who's going to be around for a while, which explains why I bought my Kadarius Toney jersey. But when you're getting someone, like, you want to have somebody who's going to be in the on the team for a while, like a standard. Let's say you get an authentic home jersey, like that's going to be your go-to normal Sunday jersey. You want to have a guy that obviously you really like, but you want to be around for a while, because I have a personal rule that as soon as somebody gets traded, becomes a free agent, that uniform goes in the closet and does not come out again until that person retires. Once they retires, okay, I can put on my I Kill Your jersey again. I can put on, a jersey of someone I had, from years past. But this is kind of an exception, because I think this uniform is kind of like a snapshot in time. This uniform is for this year. I don't know if I'd ever wear it again after this year. Maybe, probably not. But it's to reflect this year and this time. So who on this team is jersey worthy? And I kind of went through the obvious picks. I'm like, Thibodeau? Also, I don't like a single number for a guy like him. I think just doesn't look nice to me on a jersey. I think you're right. I think the answer is Neighbors, because quite frankly, I'm not, Daniel Jones is polarizing at best. Andrew Thomas, that seems kind of silly, wearing a big offensive lineman's jersey. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it, because I was really kind of stuck who that person was going to be. And if this is the year we're kind of reflecting, going forward, why not? It's a sad state of affairs that this roster doesn't have one person that I'd want to get a jersey for.
Oh, you're not kidding. But I mean,
yeah.
So Thomas was my backup, because I mean, like, personal connection to Andrew, aside from Andrew Thomas probably being the second best talent on this team, behind Dexter Lawrence.
That's interesting. That's an
Well,
interesting debate topic too.
I don't think it's a debate. I think that Andrew Thomas's position is more valuable than Dexter Lawrence's, but Dexter Lawrence is arguably the best in the league at that position, and Andrew Thomas is top 5. You know what I mean? Andrew Thomas also has not even played a 17-game season.
Yeah, but you could also be the 4th best at the position and be better in the best position at somebody else too.
That's true.
Yeah, but I would say we digest, digress. But yeah.
But personally, Dexter Lawrence, I applauded that pick. And I had good notes on him, but he wasn't really my guy. I didn't really have my eye on him. Andrew Thomas, that was the year where I had to put my fist down and be like, this is the one of the 4 tackles that I want. And it's the one that we got, and I was right about him because everyone was like, oh, the 4th. By everyone, I mean media people. I'm not talking about Giants fans, but like media people were like, oh, the Giants went and got the 4th best tackle. It's like, no, they didn't. No, they did not.
And we're also kind of splitting hairs with those 4 guys too.
Kind of. What's Jedrick Wills up to? I mean, I don't know.
At the time, I mean, whatever happens, everything has your own progress. The one big negative I have over Neighbors and Andrew Thomas is, again, my own personal biases. How I hate people from teams. Not I hate people. I hate schools.
Right.
And for me, I had to make a deal with the devil even to get an Eli jersey. It's like, you win me a Super Bowl, fine, I'll wear your jersey.
Fine,
but,
he says.
Fine. I begrudgingly bought his jersey. But, I mean, it's very hard for me. And some of you get it and some of you don't. And I understand that. But to wear a jersey of someone who went to LSU or Georgia or Tennessee or never
funny?
Happening with Florida State. I don't give a shit. If we get Jesus Christ who went to Florida State, I'm not getting his jersey. But
so it's what's funny is that I both get it because I've been down in the atmosphere and I've been around enough people from the atmosphere to get it. It's not. It doesn't take long to be like, oh, you'll kill somebody over this. Okay.
Fuck that guy. Yeah. Fuck that team.
Really. And like we've even seen it spill over on Sundays when we're in the South, like where it's just like the first thing that comes up is like, oh, he played in the ACC. It's like, what? Why are we talking about the ACC right now? But
not even the ACC. So he played for Georgia Tech. Screw them.
Yeah.
He went to South Carolina.
But where I don't get it is that your team's school is in the SEC, which means that like there's just a good chance that there's going to be one of the someone from one of those schools is ending up on your team pretty much every year.
I'll support them because he's on my team.
I get it, but it's just
root for them, but I'm not glorifying them.
Like,
I'm not wearing their jersey.
Some level of like just dealing with it comes.
And here's one other thing. I can't deal with it. I know I can't. I'm small. But here's something else I'll never understand from you people. Okay, great. We get Odell Beckham. You'd be like Odell Beckham. You show up at Giant Stadium wearing an LSU Odell Beckham jersey, you are an asshole.
Well,
and you know
okay.
something? If
hang on.
Unsubscribe to this show.
Let me ask you this question though. Yes. Is that valid if the person wearing it is also an LSU Tiger? Like, is it okay for you to wear a Gators Kadarius Toney jersey to a Giants game?
1,000%.
Okay.
Because I'm a Gator. That guy is a Tiger. Oh, absolutely. You should. You know something? You should probably only wear that.
Okay.
I mean, that's perfectly valid to do. It's just some.
Well, first of all, most of these people don't. I've seen plenty of Duke Daniel Jones jerseys to know that there are not that many brilliant people in MetLife.
That guy's too fucking stupid to spell Duke. There's no way that he went to Duke. And you also know what that. Duke, you're really hitting a sore spot me with the Duke ones. So
why is that?
They're the worst. They're just the typical little.
Because of basketball?
That little frat boy white guy with the pop collar acts like who spends all of daddy's money and acts like a complete entitled asshole. That Duke guy. And then you see all these guys in the NBA who were that guy for Duke. Going back to Christian Laettner and JJ Redick and all these little schmucks that you just want to hit with a mallet. So I mean, if you're doing the Daniel Jones, I'm wearing a Duke one. You really are a douchebag.
Or you went there. And you fooled me.
Well, then you're a douchebag too, probably.
I will say the number of Barkley Penn State jerseys. There's probably a fair amount of Penn State alum at
and again, when you say something in like that little bubble, like a cartoon, you want to kind of when you say something, you realize, let me preface that you want to pop that bubble. I probably would have done it for that. If you went to that school, I 100% do it. I would do the same thing. Here's a little secret, guys. I did not have a Kadarius Toney Gators jersey when he was playing in Florida. Okay, so I had Tim Tebow one, obviously, and I Hilliard, but I did not have a Kadarius Toney one. So, but I think that's perfectly fine. But just to be like, I'm so
I think
cool.
people just do it to be different. Let's be
Of
honest.
course they do. They try to be fast, fashion trends, and you look like an idiot.
Well, now you can actually get like their jersey, like that with the like NIL shit. Like it's really
Yeah,
their jersey.
great. But you didn't
Um,
go there. You're
no,
not a
no, I agree.
bulldog. You're not a Seminole. You're not a.
Well, let me ask you one final variable on this question.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you feel with the NCAA the way it is, with people even being labeled by like is Caleb Williams really a Trojan to you? You know what I mean? Like does it
Uh,
get kind of hairy? You get these guys that, oh, they played their fifth
well,
year senior graduate bullshit. They went to no classes ever. They
the
showed up in the
problem
final year, walked onto the field, threw a bunch of touchdowns.
I have made my feelings about this transfer portal very, very clear. That I think that has killed college football as we knew it. Not that it's killing it, it has killed it. Now we have a playoff, and now it's going to be 12 teams, and that's different. Now we pay players, and that's different. But the fact that, what made college football special from any other sport was that you, me personally, have a bond with the guys on the field. We are the same. We are both Gators. We both went to that school. Now, some people may have went to more classes than others, but you get my point. They
No,
were
I do.
students.
Yeah.
Now that you basically have free agency all 4 years, like it's not even like the pros where I have a 3-year contract. It's you are a free agent every single year, and you can bounce from school A to school B to school C. That kind of bond that you had with these guys is gone. Now they are just hired guns, have been brought in, paid now to come in and do one thing. It's kind of like, you ever saw Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the movie
Of
from the
course.
early 80s?
Yep.
They're like, the one scene when Forrest Whitaker is the football player and they see him at the mall and they're like, wow, I never saw him in real life. I thought they just flew him in for games.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of what it feels like now. It's just like you have these guys, these mercenaries coming in who knew when you talk to these guys when they played back then and you hear interviews with them now 30 years later, they still hate Georgia. They still hate Florida. They still hate whoever because they went to school there for 4 years. They played them, twice or four times, and they hate them. How does anybody now, when you get to like a rivalry game, these guys don't give a shit? That's just a game on the schedule. There's no history behind it, and I think that has ruined the game.
It
It's
sounds like a
it'll never be
very
the same.
it sounds like a very old head conversation, and I think if I were just my personality, being a brat, and if I were younger, I would listen to this conversation you're having and be like, listen to this fucking old man talk about history and culture and shit I don't care about. I want to see good players on good teams.
Yeah,
But
remember,
you are 125% correct.
and
You
also,
are.
I'm also this audience that listens to Just Giants. The vast majority of you either live in or from a part of the country that does not have the same relationship with college football that people in the South, the Midwest, and to some extent in the West do, where it's not just what I watch on Saturdays. It's not even the same relationship that I have with the Giants on Sunday.
No.
I consider myself a very serious fan enough to do this show on May 20th when there's literally nothing to talk about
No,
except us talking
enough
about
to
uniforms.
fly there after Saturday. That's how much you care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is not even in the same ballpark as your relationship with your college football team. It's
No.
just different. That's me. That's me. I'm them, and that's kind of broken away now. So yeah, people that are who watch up in the Northeast who didn't have that background, either they didn't go to that school or it's just not part of the culture. It's not part of the culture in New York. Down in the South, in Florida, and even Florida is not even as much as it is like in Alabama or Georgia
Or
or Mississippi
Texas.
or South Carolina or Texas. Yeah, it's it's more than just Saturday.
Well, it's an
It
integral part of the school. I mean, like honestly,
Well,
it's
forget the school.
every
It's
day.
it's beyond the school. It's way beyond the school.
But
I
what
mean,
I'm saying
yes.
is like people don't realize like they think about college football because they think about it on Saturday and maybe Friday they talk to people about what game they're going to watch maybe. But when you're attending the school and all you see all week and all you hear all week is the
Oh,
next
sure.
opponent. And I've known you for long enough. I mean the minute the game is over, you switch your avatar to beat Tennessee, beat Kentucky. You are ready. I mean like
Yeah.
it really is all week, all the time. It's important. People who don't give a fuck about football are like, fuck Kentucky.
And then what happens is when you leave and you graduate and
It
you start your first
stays
job, it stays with you, and you'd be
forever.
shocked. You may, let's say you like, let's take my sister for example. Like, she likes sports. She's not nothing nearly like what I am, but she, you know,
She likes sports.
yeah, but she like whatever.
She's
But
not a
when she,
maniac, but she likes
right,
sports.
but when she went as a freshman to Florida, she started following Florida football. Now, not like me, like looking at depth charts and watching spring practice or anything, but enough that she really got into it. And to this day, she's been out now 25 years. She lives in Atlanta. She goes to the Gator Club to watch the game.
Yes, she does.
Yes,
And
and
when she didn't live in Georgia, she lived elsewhere. She was going to the Gator Club there.
right, right. It's not, again, it's much more than just those 13 games. So it's not easy for people who have it who are part of that who have that culture from either being a student or living in an area where it is mission one. Remember, in Alabama, no pro teams.
No,
The only thing
exactly.
the only thing they got is NASCAR that's pro and the occasional attempt at a spring football league. That's it. So
You're 100% right.
that is and most of the people that are Alabama or Auburn fans never went to the school. Most of them have never been to Tuscaloosa or to Auburn, Alabama. They just watch on TV, listen on the radio, and they are just fans. And you hate those fuckers. And it's like it would be very hard to. I couldn't do it. I mean, the Eli thing was just. And remember, Eli was 2-0 against Florida. He beat us twice. Peyton was 0-4. Eli was 2-0. So it was one of those things like, okay, sure, he wins us the Super Bowl. I'll buy his jersey. And again, like I said, it actually happened twice.
Did
I
you
got a
or did
home and away jersey.
I get you your Eli jersey?
No,
I know
I bought.
I know I gave you a signed one.
No, that's not my wearing one. That's one I just have in my
I hope not.
to be framed collection. Once I actually get an apartment that's big enough to have framed up, framed anything on the wall. But no, I whenever what was it 2008 that season I got an Eli jersey because a home one because we won the Super Bowl. 2011 we won the second one. I got the away one. And then those redneck fucks in Carolina stole mine.
Oh, that was the Eli jersey? I didn't know
That's the
that.
away Eli jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that's going to do it for this episode. It's the summer. OTAs
we
just started, so there's
we have
really nothing to
become
talk about yet, but
we become a Seinfeld episode. That was a whole lot of talk about nothing.
no, but it wasn't. It's sports talk and that honestly, I do want to before the college season starts, I really want to do like a whole Cranky's take on the NCAA because I know you could do probably a 3-part episode on that.
I could do it
B,
without taking a breath. I could do the whole thing. Yep.
I'm simply interested in it, and C, I think it's important because I do think that this is, while I think the playoff is awesome, I think that college sports is literally making a sharp left turn off of a cliff like Wiley, and I think right now it's like Wiley Coyote style. It's already off the ground and it's just hovering there right before it does the drop. You know,
In a real nutshell, what, and I'm going to say the main culprit of this is ESPN
oh,
and also Fox
okay,
is trying to turn the sport into what it was to what they want it to be.
right.
And what they want it to be is a replica of the of the NFL without a lot of the aggravation that the NFL brings.
Interesting. So that's something that we're probably going to do. But what's definitely going to
Yeah.
happen over the next couple of weeks, we're going to go over the OTAs. Today was OTA 1, so not really much to talk about. And if something happened, I didn't even see it yet. So
The only thing
whatever.
I saw an alert that Daniel Jones participated in 7-on-7s.
Okay, which is not really too surprising, but it's good to hear.
It's great news to hear from everybody who is like it's so quick to cast him off and be like, what are we gonna do from week 1?
Well, I mean, if you didn't know who was throwing week 1 after the draft was over, I don't know what to tell you. But
Well, if he wasn't gonna be ready to play, or conspiracy theories out there
oh
and all this
yeah,
different
okay,
stuff.
yeah. But nevertheless, we'll go over OTAs next week, and we're going to start doing. There is a really interesting offensive defensive scheme philosophy conversation I want to have, but we're running a
Yeah,
little long now, so we're not going to do
yeah.
that. So we'll do that
We'll do it
next
next
week.
week. Yeah, this will be a fun one too. It's kind of like how much should a coach's philosophy impact the entire
It's a
organization? Yeah,
two-part question. It's does an
yeah,
incoming coach with an offensive philosophy have a vision for the defense, and part two is should he have a vision for the defense. So that's kind of the
exactly.
conversation we want to tackle next week. And that was posed to me by Research Rick, and I honestly don't even know if he wanted us to discuss it or smarter people, but nevertheless, we're going to give our best shot next week. So be sure to stay tuned. iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course YouTube. Tell a friend or ask a friend what to listen to, and when they give their answers, be like, also you should check out Just Giants.
And we may do a bonus episode this week talking about the Knicks with some special guests. I gotta get that lined up and worked out because I'm on the road this week all over the West, and it's just working on schedules. So just keep watching the socials for an update on that.
All right, until next time, go
Go
Giants.
Giants.